you. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
You know, it's fun getting to learn more about your book, and I'll tell you, this is one of those topics that I think is so stinking practical when it comes to marriages, which I'm sure you've experienced in the time that you've spent mediating with couples. And really the goal of the interview today is for couples to have 5-minute tools to walk away with that will guarantee, listen to that, guarantee you will fight less and fight better with your mate. And so, Laurie, thank you for being a part of this. And I want to just jump right in. Tell the listeners the most common complaint or issue that you hear from couples in your practice.
Well, the most common issue that I hear is that when two people are fighting, they're fighting about different things. So there's no way to reach a solution if you have subtle differences in what you think the problem is. So my background in law and mediation, as opposed to psychology, is that I bring logic into all of these situations that can be emotional and difficult. And what we've done is strategized, here's the 3 steps to talk about this or to talk about that. And I never tell couples in my practice what their personal solution should be to the fight, whether it's about, my husband comes home too late, or how much money should we spend on things, or how should we discipline our children. I don't have the personal answer because every couple has to decide for themselves what works for them. But how you get to that answer, that's your conflict resolution skill. That's your communication skill, and that's usually just a very simple 1, 2, or 3-step method to get to it. But we don't learn this in school, and that's where mediation comes in. And so once we know how to do this, we can apply it to anything in our lives. To love, yes, you could apply it at work. You could apply it with your own, your mother, which I do. So it can really empower you with the strength of communication, and you really feel confident and comfortable embracing some of the harder topics.
I love it.
For example.
Yeah, I was just going to say, take us into an example. Break this down for our our listening audience. How do you actually do that? Because it sounds good.
Yeah, it does sound good, and it actually works because we've done a lot of research and follow-up on people who've taken the Fight Less, Love More virtual course, and they apply the skills immediately, and it's just a total turnaround in their marriage. So what would be something you could do tonight, tomorrow? Here's the first very simple thing. Okay, let's say your husband comes home or your wife comes home and they've done something that you think is really, really silly. Like, let's say they didn't take an umbrella and it's raining. Simplicity.
I'm gonna put myself on the chopping block right now. I'm gonna share. This is a real transparent moment. So my wife, I've been gone all week traveling, and I came home and she was like, I really need to go spend some time shopping, and I wasn't feeling well, and I basically was like, I can't watch the kids. And so we got into this, I guess you could call it a fight about, you've been gone all week and I need to spend some time running around. So anyway, help us resolve our conflict, Laurie.
Okay, fine. We'll put it that way. Here we go. If you're going to have a good fight, and by the way, I always say fighting is normal. If you're not fighting, you're not being honest.
That's right.
Because
Absolutely.
No way you agree on everything. The point is you want to have a fight without throwing a plate. So you do that through the power of words. So the first thing you want to do when you realize you and your wife are about to have this fight is you want to do something different. See, every couple has a fight routine. You have your own pattern of behavior, things you say to each other, who gets angrier, how you seek revenge, whether you chase each other around the house as the other one tries to get away, slam a door. So you might say to your wife, all right, this is going to be a hot button issue. Can we sit down for a minute? So I recommend ask to sit down, and that tells your body instantly, okay, I'm not going to get into the same fight routine that we always do that always ends up nowhere. So you sit. And the second part is really key in a good fight. It's playing a detective. We have to pretend we know nothing, okay, because we probably don't. And what you do is you say to your wife, all right, let me just try and understand this. So what is it that you're thinking? You actually ask that question. And then you actually listen to the answer. And she'll tell you, I'm not going to imagine what she's going to tell you, but, she'll give you explanations and reasons for why it is that she needs you to watch the kids right then. The more that she talks and shares that, the better she feels about you. That's just the way human nature is. And you are showing what is the key principle and value in a good fight. respect. Every time you have a bad fight, what is it that happens? You feel disrespected. And every time you have a good fight, you feel respected. That's the distinction. And when you feel respect in a fight, guess where you land? In a solution. So she shared with you what's going on. Then you say, okay, so here's what you're saying. You say it back. And now you're free to share your own perspective. You don't have to hide that you think something different. Be assertive. Say, okay, so I get that. So here's what I'm saying about why it's hard for me to watch the kids right now. And then you share yours. And if she tries to cut you off, you say, if you have more to say, I'm totally happy to listen to you, but I think it's only fair that I also get a chance to say what I need to say. And you share your point of view, which could be like, I need a shower, like I've been sitting on the plane. I need to stretch out my legs. I just need like a little bit of time to take a shower, put my bag away, and take a breath before I can like jump in there and play with the kids. And then I'll be re-energized. So you share your side. So what did we have? We had to do something different, which might be sit down. We had play a detective, where you say, what are you thinking? Why are you thinking that? And I call those neutral questions. Am I missing something? As opposed to, you shouldn't feel that way. That's selfish. How could you say that? Which is a normal human way to respond. And then the third part is, you then look to your wife and you say, okay, now, we've shared this, so let's brainstorm a solution. I mean, wouldn't you do that at a meeting at work?
Right.
You wouldn't just sit there and like relish in your own point of view and not move. You'd say, all right, well, now we've shared, so let's brainstorm a solution. And the right solution is not hers or yours, because all the research in mediation shows that a person has to participate in coming up with a solution in order to wholeheartedly comply with it. So the brainstorm part is, you try and literally figure out, okay, I understand that you're you need time away, and now you understand that I need time, and so it's actually a pretty simple answer. What is it?
We both need time.
Do you know what it is? What?
We both need time?
Yeah, but how can you both get time?
Let's see here. We take turns having time.
Okay. That sounds good. So maybe you go get a half hour to take your shower,
right.
Put your suitcase down,
right.
Take a breath, check your email.
Yep.
And then she gets to go out for 2 hours.
Yeah. So let me just break this down for our listeners. So the starting point is to request that we sit down. That's I guess step one would be, let's sit down.
Three steps to a good fight.
Okay. So first one is step one is let's sit down. Step two is to ask open-ended questions to begin to be the investigate.
Be a detective.
Be the detective.
Neutral questions.
Okay.
Neutral questions to be a detective, because even though you think you know why you might saying that, there's stuff you don't know.
Right. And then the third step is to brainstorm together a solution that works for both of us.
That's right. And most people, when they fight, they don't ask neutral questions. They ask questions that are very accusatory. So you're not actually learning new information. With each question, you're just affirming what you already think.
Right.
And then you never get to part three, the solution.
Right. Right.
Now, another way to take this situation is to think of these skills as an apology. What if you were giving an apology, and you've heard people say something like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What do you want from me? I'm sorry.
Right.
And that doesn't really come out. It sounds insincere. So why does it sound insincere? Well, because there's two steps to a perfect apology. And the first is, I'm sorry for. And you fill in the blank with what you did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because that goes to the point that sometimes what you think you did wrong is not what the other person thinks you did wrong. So you just clarify that first. And then the second part is, in the future, I will, blank. And you fill in the blank with what you'll do to prevent the same mistake from happening again.
Right.
See, that's the solution part. Because the problem in a fight, and in a bad fight, and the problem in a bad apology is that everybody thinks it's going to happen again. Right? Isn't that that's really the issue? What happened yesterday is over. So it's so important in part two of the apology, which again, most people don't even realize is part of a perfect apology. is that you have to come up with a plan to prevent the same mistake from happening again.
Right.
And that then you take something that was causing a conflict, and now you've rebuilt trust and respect and camaraderie.
So what about the couple, one is willing to walk through this. The other one is they don't have buy-in, right? Or they're the one that's ticked off. How does that play out? I mean, is this something that can work for one who's motivated and the other one's unmotivated by a process of walking through?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely,
Tell me how.
Because the person who has the wisdom of understanding that you're now about to do something with a process that's different from the way your habits have been in the past, you just manage the process. You're not telling the person what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that person owes you an apology, and they haven't learned how to give the perfect apology. That's okay. You just say to them, you're saying you're sorry, but what exactly are you sorry for? Oh, you know. And you say, actually, I don't know, and I would really, I want to resolve this with you. I don't want to fight about this for an hour or even 5 more minutes. So if you could just share what you're sorry for, we can make sure that we're on the same page. And then they share it, and then you say, okay, well, I get that and I appreciate that, but now I'd like to figure out with you how we can prevent this from happening again. So here's an idea I have. Do you have any ideas?
Right.
And you do it that way. And the idea you present is not, don't be a jerk next time. Because, again, that's what people do. It's our instinct. But don't be a jerk next time is not an actionable solution, right?
Yes.
So you have to actually think and come up with, okay, you'll call me before you leave the office so I know what time you're coming home. Or I will email you in the morning to remind you of that item you need to put in your briefcase.
Yeah.
You have to have something that a person can do, and that's what communication skills really are. It's that we're well intentioned, we're decent people, and what I've seen in marriages is that love disintegrates over time, and this is true for me, for you, for everybody. The reason it disintegrates is because what we come to expect from our mate, we come to neglect. So all the things that our mate did and performed and were there for us in the beginning become normal. And we stop recognizing it, and we stop appreciating it, and we stop being polite to each other. And so then it just leaves room and right for all of these, bad fights and bad apologies, and our communication skills just really go downhill. I mean, if you were dating someone and they made a mistake, wouldn't you ask them what happened before you yelled?
Mm-hmm.
But then once you're married, it's like...
We forget that vital concept, right?
Yeah, we really do, because we feel so busy and we cut to the chase. And, well, they should have known to get the pizza with the mushrooms on top. Don't they know me by now?
Right. There seems to be a lot of mind reading that goes into it at that point.
A lot of mind reading and a lot of expectations. And what we really need to know is that it's normal for love to have these ebbs and flows. And most of all of us are going to watch our love diminish if we don't speak to each other consciously with respect, appreciation, compassion, and cooperation. And the words that we use reinforce the values in our marriage every single day in these small conversations. In a fight is an opportunity to grow your marriage. An apology is an opportunity to grow trust.
In your book, you talk about love's conditions are met by using the right verbal skills. And maybe just unpack that statement. That's a powerful statement in and of itself. And I kind of where I'm leading us is in you give some great 5-minute conversations that can really help couples move. Because I think you're right. I mean, the whole idea of love disintegrating over time, if we're not intentional about what we're saying, is the net result of that is going to be there's going to be a lack of intimacy, lack of connection. So maybe take a couple minutes here to help us understand love's conditions are met by using the right verbal skills.
Sure. Well, we'd like to think that love is unconditional. And the reality is in a marriage that it's not. Because, while we know that we teach our children values of respect and appreciation and cooperation and compassion, we don't expect to have to teach our husband or our wife those values. So when those conditions, those values don't exist in our marriage, we fall out of love. And that's when people say things like, we grew apart. We're just not compatible anymore. I like him, but I don't love him anymore. I'm not in love with him. And that's because those values have evaporated from neglect, from not thinking about our words anymore and not connecting. So how can we change that? Well, I'm going to give you an example of something that I can feel pretty confident 90% of the people listening probably do this. Your mate empties out the dishes in the sink and cleans them, or loads the dishwasher and unloads it. And you see this. You know that it happened. What do you say? Nothing. You say nothing because you know why? He or she ate on those dishes too. Or maybe they were all their dishes. Or maybe it was their turn to do that. And what happens is that's what I call relationship madness. Because we start developing justifications for denying each other appreciation and gratitude. And the reason we do it in that moment is that our mate benefited from having loaded or unloaded the dishwasher. So why should I say thank you? You know, he benefited too. Why should I have to thank him for something that's good for him? And what about when your mate goes out of his way to help a friend who might what about when your mate goes out of his way to help a friend who might be sad or have lost a job or having some personal issue and go meets him for a beer? What happens then? Well, he comes back and you say nothing. Well, isn't it our job to say, wow, you're a really great friend. You know, Tom is really lucky to have you in his life. Now, that is our job, just like it's our job to say thank you when our mate empties the dishwasher. We are our mate's head cheerleader. That is one of the responsibilities that come with being a spouse. And if you're not your mate's head cheerleader, you leave room for somebody else to be. Mm. So does it feel like, I'm just a doormat if I'm thanking him for everything? No, actually, you develop these habits. You explain what you're doing and ask your mate to do the same for you. We want to be looking for opportunities to be grateful, not for justifications to deny gratitude. And this is just a conscious change. Most of us fall into it. You know, if someone opens the door for you, a stranger, we say thank you. But if your mate opens it for you, we probably say nothing.
And where does that shift begin to happen? I mean, I think this is universal, and I agree with you that 90% of our listeners are probably nodding their heads right now. Yeah, I can actually identify myself in that story. Where do you think that breakdown begins to happen? Is it just is it more just because of familiarity with the relationship, and we kind of begin to realize that, well, we already know our spouse, and this is the things that, are my love languages versus their love language, and have you been able to identify that? Because I think that's a critical part in this conversation.
Sure. Well, there's research out there showing that when couples have their first child, 90% of couples say their relationship went downhill. So that it's just a really hard year, the first year after you have your child. So kids are a big issue, but they also researched couples who don't have kids and found that it was 7 years later that they too were in the same state of unhappiness.
Okay.
So it's about familiarity, or I would put it this way, or it's about some stress that happens in your marriage, and that might be having a child or losing a job or having a health issue. Any of these things can spur us to kind of cut away the top layer of civility and, get to the core, get to sort of, the I need this, I want this. And stress can do it, exhaustion can do it, children obviously cause both, and so does a lot of other things in the world and in job issues. So that's what happens, and we just think our mate will be there the next day because, we already said I do, so I'm done.
Right.
Right. And you just go on from there. And the reality is all we have to do is be aware of this natural tendency to change it. That's all it takes. I mean, fight less, love more is so easy because it takes what, we are as human nature. It says we don't have to be perfect people. We don't have to be saints. We just have to be aware that it's a natural course of love that we come to neglect it. And let's just use the same time in our day. Actually, it takes even less time to say the right thing than to say the wrong thing. for instance, I had mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, let's say your husband comes home, your wife comes home, and they're all wet, and you had told them to take an umbrella that morning, and they were like, no, I don't want to carry an umbrella. And you see them drenched, and what do you say? Well, most of us would say, I told you to take that umbrella. Look at you. You're going to get sick. But here's what I say. From the Fight Less, Love More perspective, there's a very wise question to ask yourself before you say that, and that is, does this affect me? Does this affect me? And if the answer is no, it doesn't directly affect me, then you don't pick that battle. And that's sort of the notion. When we get married, we begin to think like we get to have a say in everything our spouse does, and we don't. If it doesn't affect you, you don't get a say.
That's so unfair, though, Laurie. I mean, come on.
The fun part of marriage is bossing
sense.
Someone around, right?
Well, and so I guess that
Well,
it leads me into this idea that I think is brilliant on your part of the 5-minute conversations on these different topics. Because in a way, is that how you default the system from going into things that you're not supposed to be kind of owning as what you think is yours, but it's really your spouse's?
That's right. I mean, so much is just about awareness. I mean, how many times have we ever thought about whether we pick a battle and we don't know how to pick the battle? So I'm saying what the rule is. The rule is, does this affect me? And if it does, then you can explain how it affects you instead of starting by telling your mate what to do.
Right.
And if it doesn't, we keep our mouth shut and we avoid a fight that we shouldn't be having.
Yeah.
Another example of the power of words in a 5-minute conversation is, what I call keep it confidential. How many times have you been upset with your spouse because they said something to a friend or a family member that you didn't want them to tell, like a health issue, let's say, or you have high cholesterol, or maybe you're trying to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying, how could you tell them that? How could you do that to me? I didn't want people to know that. Now everyone's going to look at what I'm eating when we have that dinner and family events. Okay, and you're really angry, and you know what your mate says? It's just cholesterol. It's not a big deal. My dad has high cholesterol. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? And now you have a fight. But guess what? You're fighting about the wrong issue.
Right.
What you want to have is a 5-minute conversation about what topics are private and what are public so that you don't overshare. And every couple is going to have different things on their list.
I love that.
You make a list together.
Okay, so that works for the how to keep it confidential. I'm curious, what about like criticism? I think that's one that you talk about being the cheerleader for your spouse. The opposite of that would be the critic of your spouse, right? How would you apply this 5-minute conversation around criticism?
Okay, well, I'm going to say this first. It might be shocking. Some people need to be criticized. Okay?
Wow,
so
that's a bold statement.
Yeah, in fact, all of us do sometimes. I am not against criticism, and that's, again, Fight Less, Love More is a very realistic book. I mean, we're married to people, things they do impact us. We want them to be the best selves, and part of our role is helping our mate become their best self. But what we want to do is think, what is the purpose of criticism? And the purpose is to motivate our mate to change for the better. To motivate our mate to change for the better. That's the purpose. So if that's the purpose, what I prescribe is something called rational criticism. And in rational criticism, we say what we do want, not what we don't want. We focus on the positive, not the negative. So, for example, you're at a gathering or you have people over and your spouse leaves the room and does stuff on the computer or his phone somewhere else. And you're left sort of stranded in the living room entertaining these people, and you didn't even really want to have them over anyway. So you go find your mate after a few minutes. You realize, geez, he didn't go to the bathroom. He's totally doing something else. You go, you find him, he's sitting there. You see him there on the computer, whatever he's looking at it or doing. And you want to say to your mate, the first instinct is, what are you doing? How could you leave me alone in there in the living room? You need to get back out there now. This is so rude. And your mate says in response, we all know the answer, I'm not done yet. I'll come when I'm ready. Okay? Because we would say that, right? You've just been attacked, so that you're going to counterattack.
Yeah.
Okay. So now how do you give rational criticism? You walk into the room, you see your mate at the computer, and you say, we miss you out there. We really enjoy your conversation. Can you come back soon? See, what you've done is taken, what are you really trying to accomplish? You want your mate to get back in the living room. And why do you want him in the living room? Because you actually want his conversation there. That was the underlying reason. You just didn't say it. So it's not a lie, and it's not being complimentary when you don't mean it. It's that's actually the reason. So
yeah. Well, and I'll tell you,
rational criticism is about looking for the yes, looking for the positive of why you want something to happen, as opposed to going after the negative.
Yeah, and I would say that one's creating contempt, the other one's creating connection, right? I mean, that's the statement of walking in and speaking from a place of, I really miss you. I really, want you to be a part of what we're doing over here versus why aren't you here? Which is, we're so good at projecting and directing and telling, right, our spouses what they need to be doing versus speaking from I feel this way. I need this in our relationship is so powerful.
Yes, and I had a couple in the Fight Less, Love More online class who was using rational criticism to say this. His wife takes care of their grandkids during the day while their children are working. And he said to her, when I come home and I see toys all over the lawn, and I'm thinking, oh no, where's this going? And I see toys all over the lawn, and then I have to go out and clean them up. It upsets me. And then he continued, because he had learned the chapter on rational criticism. He said, because the first thing I do feel when I get home is I want to spend time with you. I want to hug you. I want to talk to you about our days. And when I come home and I need to go spend time, cleaning up and being outside, I feel like I lose those first 15 minutes. So I'm thinking, if there's a possibility of you doing that earlier, it would be so great to just come home and be able to connect with you immediately. And he said, and I have another idea. What do you think of my getting a bin and putting it out back so it can be even faster for you and you can just throw them in there without having to organize anything?
A completely different response on her end, I'm sure.
Yes, and so did that criticism feel bad or actually feel like a hug? Yeah,
right? Absolutely. Well, I want to ask one final question. This has been so practical and helpful, and I know our users, our listeners are definitely going to love, I think, some of these answers because it cuts right through a lot of the noise. There's a lot of theories, and this is very practical. So thank you on that. But I think my final question is how to have a good fight. And I know that that's part of what we've been talking about through this whole podcast, but maybe just put a final thought for us on how to have a good fight.
Sure. Well, 69% of the fights that couples have are repeat arguments, and a topic, an issue that you never settled the first time. And these are the ones that drain us of our energy and actually bring out the worst in us, and we say the meanest things in those situations. So that's where we really want to use our new skills that we've talked about in this show, and that's where you want to play the detective and begin to ask neutral questions, because we do not know why our mate is thinking what they're thinking, because if we did, we would have had a solution last time. So the goal is put on your detective hat, go after it. Instead of running away from that argument, sit yourself down, say, honey, you're important to me, and I want to figure this out. So what am I missing here? We keep talking about this, and it goes nowhere. What am I missing here? Can you tell me? And you listen, and the listen shows respect. It's like a warm hug. You share your point of view, and then you brainstorm a solution together. And any solution you've had before hasn't worked, so don't do that again. And instead come up with something new and original and be a team. I mean, we're a team in our marriages, and we have to work together to find the solutions that work for us. And remember, what works for you is not going to be what works for your neighbor, and that's fine. That's how it should be, because we're all unique people. And we have to remember that even our spouse is unique and different from us. And so instead of forcing them into our thought process, we have to create a new one together.
It's really helpful. I can tell you that this is one of the best books to read if you're looking for immediate results and immediate things that you can apply to your relationship. I highly recommend you pick up Fight Less, Love More, and all that information of how to pick up the book is right below the video, so we'll have that for you. But Laurie, before we sign off here, I want just for a moment just to explain this virtual resource that you guys have created that really, I think, takes the book to a whole nother level for those that maybe are needing help in their relationship. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have created in this online course.
Sure. We've partnered with a leading nonprofit in the country called Family Dynamics Institute to take the content from Fight Less, Love More that's changed people's lives and put it into a 9-week, 1 hour per week course. And you can take it from your home, from your office, from abroad. Couples can be in different locations. You enter the virtual classroom at the allotted time, 1 hour per week in the evening, and you meet there with a few other couples and your course leader. And you go through material and it's live exercises. You not only read the skills, you use them right there in front of people and have a real good time doing it. And what we found is that when people go to the course and use the Fight Less, Love More skills, it transforms their habits, their verbal habits immediately. And the effects are year-long, decades-long in terms of improving their marriage. So it's a really exciting course. The fact that it's virtual means it's unlimited to location, and you need 9 hours. The registration fee is only $125, and that includes all the materials shipped to you. So you can visit my website at fightlesslovemore.com to get more information and link to where you can register. We have new courses starting every month. That's
great. And as a lawyer, you can probably validate this statement, but $125 is a whole lot less than going through a divorce.
Way less. Way less. And the funny thing about divorce is people often are fighting, having fights about money, so they won't get divorced, and they realize, wow, we have less money when we get divorced. We have more to fight over. Now we have 2 whole households to pay for.
Not only that, but I think it also would be appropriate to say that $125 investment in that course is a lot less than even going to a counselor. So this is one of those things where I think it's so rich in terms of what you've put together. And again, that information is right below the video. We're going to have all that for our listeners to be able to get access to what you have created with Family Dynamics.
That's right. It's not therapy. It's a skills-based course, and it's also very entertaining. So it's not intimidating. It's a wonderful experience.
That's great. Well, Laurie, I want to say thank you for this interview. This was wonderful. You did a great job, and I want to say celebrate. You have one of the greatest things that's coming up in the next couple of days, and thank you for taking this interview in spite of being 10 days away. So from delivering your 3rd child.
Yeah,
awesome.
Any minute now. My water didn't break while we were on the phone.
Oh my goodness. Well, we'll let you go.
Thank you.
Take care.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.